Today I'm sitting down with Sonita to chat about one of her favourite comedies, 2003's Freaky Friday. After we go through the plot, we'll compare the Lindsay Lohan Jamie Lee Curtis version to the original book and the 1976 movie with Jodie Foster. We'll discuss the emotional journey of Freaky Friday, the funniest quotes, the fashion, the music, and whether it was the pinnacle of Lindsay Lohan's career. And finally, we'll give you our thoughts on the upcoming sequel, Freakier Friday. But for now, sit back, relax, and welcome to my film club. After discussing Bridesmaids in her last appearance, Sonita is back today to talk about one of her favourite comedies, Freaky Friday. So first of all, welcome back, Sonita.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So the sequel to Freaky Friday, Freakier Friday, is coming out this weekend. So there seemed like no better time to talk about this early 2000 gem with you, as it happens to be one of your favorite movies. We are going to share our thoughts at the end about the new film based on the trailer, and then we're also going to give our instant reaction on Instagram, so make sure to follow us there to see this weekend what we think of it. But today we're going to focus on the original Lindsay Lohan, Jamie Lee Curtis, and I say in parentheses because, as we'll talk about, there are many iterations of Freaky Friday, and the 2003 one was actually the fifth one, but more on that later. So first and foremost, Sonita, what does this movie mean to you?
So I watched it when I was 12, I think, or maybe 13 when it first came out. And it was a very formative time, I would say. Starting secondary school, making a bunch of new friends. Avril Lavigne had just come out around that time, which is very important because, as we'll talk about, this film has a bit of a style of kind of pop punk music and things like that going on. Always enjoyed an American high school comedy, drama, whatever you would call this. So it fit right into the type of movie that I would like. And yeah, I loved it straight away. I think I've watched it every year since it came out. Actually, I've probably watched it more in my adult life.
Do you remember if you saw it in the cinema the first time?
I was trying to think about this. So I think I saw it in the cinema, and I have a feeling I saw it with my friend Chrissy at the time, who was a new friend at school. But I've watched it so many times since.
So you say about once a year, so you definitely watched it 20 plus times.
Yeah.
And so what is it about it? So obviously you've explained where you were in your life, and obviously it makes sense that it resonates. But I find with these movies, sometimes you can look back at a movie you loved then and you're like, as an adult, you don't appreciate it. But with this one, would you say in a way your appreciation has grown over time?
Definitely. So there's probably three different phases that I'd put it in my viewing. The first phase is I was obviously quite young, impressionable, and I guess found it quite cool. Like, you know, you kind of look more at the Anna character as like similar sort of age, and it definitely resonated from like a teenage experience perspective and things like that. Not that I ever had a band, which we'll talk about. But then I think there was like a middle phase of like older teenage years, early 20s, where I thought about it more from like the family dynamics, which we'll talk more about. There was like some changes in our family similar to sort of to the story, and that was kind of how I thought about it. And now as an older person in my early 30s, early to mid, you know, start to think about it more from like the relationships angle between the two of them, and also the Jamie Lee Curtis character, thinking about like, you know, potentially starting a family, parenting, what your styles will be like, you know, whether anything will ever be appreciated when you have a teenager, all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, I'd say probably it's shifted over time, which you could argue makes it a timeless classic.
Absolutely. I think it is great when a movie it takes you in because it's just funny. It's just a funny movie, and then your appreciation as you go through life grows with it. And I'm curious to see where like 10 years from now, because we're hoping to start a family, so we're looking at it much more from a parent's point of view. But we don't have kids yet, and I'm sure that once you do, especially if it's a teenage girl, that's going to resonate on a whole other level. Yeah. So I don't know if we're in the beginning of the third phase, or if there's a fourth phase that's coming. So we're going to do our spoiler-free section as usual. So for someone, without giving away too much, how would you can give the premise, I guess. But yeah, how would you describe this movie to someone without spoiling it too much?
So I'm going to say it's about a mum and daughter that have what seems like a little bit of a complicated relationship at the beginning. And
don't all mothers and daughters, especially at that age.
Teenage daughters especially. And then basically they end up switching places for a day, and it's about them living a day in each other's shoes and coming across all the challenges that the other one tends to face. And you'll have to see what happens, but it's all about how it impacts their understanding of each other.
Yeah, as we'll talk about more, this is based on a book. It's been adapted a bunch of times. And the book is basically just the idea, and it's an interesting idea, but the execution has gotten better over time. And this movie really takes a good idea and executes it perfectly in terms of exploring the themes, having great actors, interesting character arcs, interesting story. And yeah, I think, it could just be a funny movie with a couple of jokes here and there about seeing a mom in high school and seeing a girl deal with adult stuff, but there's so much more, as we'll discuss at length.
Yeah.
I've watched this movie far less than you, probably 5 or 6 times. I don't remember at all the first time, but I definitely remember watching it back when Lindsay Lohan was a rising star, so probably within a couple of years of it coming out, probably not at the cinema. But speaking of that, so the movie was released in 2003, and as we'll talk about more, it's based on a novel that came out in the 70s by Mary Rodgers. There have been, to date, 6 on-screen adaptations of Freaky Friday, with the new one, Freakier Friday, will be the 7th. The 1976 movie, so big movie, was the first one, starring Jodie Foster and Barbara Harris, and the screenplay there was written by Mary Rodgers. So the person who wrote the book then wrote the screenplay for the movie. Later on, after we do the plot, we're going to do a proper comparison of the book versus the 76 movie versus the 2003 movie. Then it was remade twice as a made-for-TV movie in Summer Switch in 1984 and Billions for Boris in 1984. And then there was a 1995 straight remake of it. Apparently, one of the reasons this movie got made in 2003 was because of the Princess Diaries that had come out in 2001 and had proved that you could have a female-led movie for kids that could do very well. And that was one of the driving forces at Walt Disney to get it made. It was a huge success. It grossed $160 million worldwide on a $26 million budget, so massive ROI. But it still came second to SWAT, which actually was one of my favorite movies growing up, is a boys action movie starring Colin Farrell, Samuel L. Jackson, Jeremy Renner. So 2 very different movies that came out at the same time. You've
literally never heard of that film.
It's not a good movie. This Freaky Friday is a lot better, but as a 13-year-old boy, this is what I was watching. This movie still did very well despite coming in second at the box office, and it's still, to this day, Lindsay Lohan's biggest box office success, which is kind of crazy. We're going to do a whole bit on Lindsay Lohan's career and how, honestly, I think this was the high point of her career, which, given that she was 15, 16 at the time of making it, is a bit sad, but more on that later. Jamie Lee Curtis got a Golden Globe nomination for this movie. So now onto the reviews. So Rotten Tomatoes, how much do you think from the critics versus the audience?
I think I'm going to be disappointed either way. I'm going to say the critics maybe like a 70, and maybe the audience 60.
So reviewers was 88.
Oh, okay.
So much better than you thought. And then the audience, you said
60.
58.
Oh.
And God, this is really going to break your heart. Well, I'm giving it away. How much do you think on IMDb?
Oh no. It has to be above a 6.5.
What are you guessing?
6.8.
6.3.
Oh,
so it
stings.
It's weird. I had a quick dig on Rotten Tomatoes user ratings, and I just like seeing like the last 100, and most of them are good, but there are just people that don't get this movie. I think I'll be completely honest. It was only on these last couple. I knew it was a good movie. It was only on these last couple of rewatches that all of the personal stuff and the intricacies of the family dynamics really sunk in with me. As you alluded to and we'll discuss, obviously, it was much more topical for you, so I'm sure you took note of it. Also, there's a simple fact that you were a teenage girl, so I'm sure it resonated a lot more than for me. But yeah, I think some people just don't see that. And if you're not paying attention to the end, you don't kind of see how everything comes together so nicely. So yeah, I think it's underappreciated. I mean, according to these scores, it definitely is. So final question before we cross the spoiler line. Who should watch this movie? What mood should they be in?
Well, for me, who I'm rarely in a mood not to watch this movie, I would say if you're anything like me and you enjoy, actually made a note of a couple of other movies that if you like these movies, you'll probably like this one. So kind of like angsty American high school, like comedy slash drama, I guess. Like 10 Things I Hate About You was one I wrote down. Mean Girls, even though that's more like lighthearted. Easy A. Could be mostly targeted at women or younger girls, but I'd say teens, adults, the parenting aspect that we alluded to as well, so maybe even from that angle. But you know what? I don't want to put people in a box. You could be a gentleman who's watched it 6 times and really appreciates it now, and so I'm not going to say it's for one specific audience, but if you like those other movies, then I think you'll like this one.
I think another one as well, if in terms of the parallel ones, I think you've got to put Parent Trap in there, both because of the Lindsay Lohan aspect, but also the dual life and the family stuff as well.
Yeah.
One note I made about this is that a lot of the times we'll say with these comedies like Bridesmaids, you can obviously Bridesmaids has a lot of depth, as we discussed. Check out that episode. But you can just put Bridesmaids on and have a natter over it and just laugh at particular scenes. And obviously this movie has funny scenes, but I do feel like this is more of a full movie experience.
Yeah.
That if you just put it on, watch half, and then don't pay attention the second half, you might say, "Oh, that movie was very unremarkable." So I think this is definitely definitely a funny movie, but I think if you're going to watch it, you need to watch it properly. So now we're going to cross the spoiler line. So from now on, we're going to talk about everything. Like we might talk about the end in a minute. We're not going to hold anything back. So what we recommend is if you haven't seen this movie but you're intrigued, go and watch it and then come back and watch the rest of the podcast. If you've seen the movie and you want to rewatch it before getting into the weeds with us, then do that. Or if you trust us and you don't care about the spoilers, watch on. So let's start with the entertainment value. This is obviously a comedy, and I think it's fair to say that it is first and foremost a funny movie.
Yeah, it's a funny movie. I actually underlined a couple of things that you had shared in your notes. Makes you think, makes you laugh, also emotional. So I don't know what category it goes into there, but yeah.
Yeah, I put funny first and foremost, but with real heart.
Yeah.
And it's a smart movie. Like the jokes are smart. They pay off emotionally. It has a real direction. I've realized this on the last one. It's a really well-paced movie. There's no... The original movie came out in 1976. It's literally as though they had the concept, they switched bodies, and they just spent an hour just having gags.
Yeah.
Just silly, like, oh, this silly woman. Again, it came out in the 70s, so it's extremely sexist. But it's like, oh, look at this silly woman who can't do the dishes, and look at this silly person do that. And honestly, it's in the behind the scenes of 2003, anytime they referred to that one, they kept saying, oh, it was so different. It was a farce, really. It was slapstick. And I just thought, you can just say it was terrible. It was just not a great movie. More on that later. But the point is, in contrast, this one, the jokes, obviously there's a couple of jokes here or there that are just like, oh my God, I'm old, and oh, I'm going to pierce my so-and-so, like just funny jokes. But generally, everything kind of is guided towards the story, which I think is really good. Yeah, so strong plot and direction, and then the ending. So it's funny throughout, you're along for the ride, and then the ending just gives you the feels.
Yeah.
I cried on the last one.
Same. Gets me every time.
Yeah. And good length. It's about 1:39 with credits. So basically an hour and a half, which again, it doesn't feel like, even movies that we love, like even Bridesmaids, I think we were said, oh, it could have shaved 10, 15 minutes off. But here, it feels like everything was there for a reason. And that's great. And one of the other things I made notes of is the small details that I think you said you'd noticed them before, but details that I hadn't even noticed, like just little things to just show that it's a smart movie, that the director knows what they're doing, the actors know what they're doing, and you could just imagine these little things that they just added. It's like, wait, do that, and to people like us, like that is just so funny. Yeah. Well, we're past the spoiler line, so do you want to give an example of one of them?
Yeah. So when Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan, when they've swapped bodies, and the Lindsay Lohan character, she's walking with her friends in high school, and I think, is it Christina Vidal? Yeah. She's got that crop top on, and then Lindsay Lohan sort of like, as they're just having a conversation, pulls down her crop top to sort of cover her belly button, because she's like, that's not clothing. Or like she has the antibacterial hand wipe that she uses to wipe down Chad Michael Murray's motorbike, and it's like, it's not a big thing. Yeah, it's not like,
if you look away, you miss it. Because not that much attention is brought to it, but I think that's what's great about it, is this just subtle stuff that's there for people that are paying close attention. Yeah. And that is what it would be like. If you were a 50-year-old woman in the body of a 14-year-old, you would just like, oh, everything's messy, everything's unhygienic.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's great. And then the other thing, for the physical comedy, some of the physical comedy, mostly I think from Jamie Lee Curtis, when she just like hangs out like a teenager and stuff, is just really funny, but not overused. So just a really well balanced comedy like this, like we said with Bridesmaids. This is what good comedy should be like. It should be really funny. It should be smart. It should have a heart. It should be well paced. And yeah, this movie just knocks it out of the park.
Yeah. And it's not even like over the top either. If you think about like, this is one of the other things I like about, if you think about yourself in that situation, you would be doing those sorts of things. Like when they're pushing Jamie Lee Curtis onto the stage for that TV show and her legs are just straight out in front of her. Like she's about to go on stage in front of millions of people and talk about this book that she doesn't know. So like it's my worst nightmare. So
now we're going to go through the story. We're going to remind our listeners about the plot so they can stay with us. And then we're going to mention our favorite scenes. So I'll start with let's start from the absolute beginning, the opening sequence, which again I hadn't paid much attention to until this last rewatch. So it's a bunch of paintings that they show, 2 or 3 paintings, and then it leads into these photos of Jamie Lee Curtis with a child. I did a bit of research on what these paintings were.
Oh, good, because I have no idea.
So the first one is a 16th century painting of the Virgin holding the sleeping child with Saint John and 2 angels, but it's just focused on basically the Virgin Mary holding a baby. So it's kind of this very biblical, literally view of motherhood, of, I am the Virgin Mary and this is my baby. Then the next one is Georgiana, Duchess of Devonshire, with her infant daughter, where the daughter is around 6-7, from 1784. It's actually hung at Chatsworth House, where we've been to.
Wow.
Then the third one is The Music Lesson, 1977, by Frederick Leighton. And that obviously is a reference to the fact that she plays guitar, because it's like the mother teaching her to play guitar. Then there's The 11th Hour, 11th Day, and 11th Month by Walter Percy. So these are all just chronologically paintings of mothers and daughters. I couldn't find any significance beyond the mother-daughter thing. And obviously then like little references like the music. Then there's a weird one, which is a photo of an Asian mum and her daughter, which Google Images did not recognize anywhere. So maybe it's one of the Chinese restaurant owners' pictures or something random like that. And then it goes to 2 pictures of Jamie Lee Curtis with a child. And that was actually her real daughter, Annie Guest. Sometimes they'll Photoshop, they'll take a picture of Lindsay Lohan when she was a baby and Photoshop her in there. But no, here they just use Jamie Lee Curtis's real daughter.
Oh, that's cute.
And then we're not gonna go through the whole movie in this much detail, but I just think the beginning is like quite a strong beginning with like all these paintings and stuff, and then the music transition. So all of this that I'm talking about is doing "Happy Together" by the Turtles, 1970s song, and then it switches to the cover by Simple Plan.
Yeah.
And it reminds me a lot of the beginning of 10 Things I Hate About You, when it goes from one type of music to another. And in both cases, it's used as this transition to kind of show the 2 main characters. The first song is what Jamie Lee Curtis represents, and the second song is what Lindsay Lohan represents. And then we go from metaphorical conflict to literal conflict immediately, with Jamie Lee Curtis waking her up
and trying to drag her out of bed by her feet.
Yeah, which is very, everyone can relate to that, literally or metaphorically.
Yeah.
I also really like that whole beginning thing in Fast Forward ends with her slamming her door, and it has the parental advisory poster. And you know what? I had that poster on my door as well, so I can relate. And also, it's a 6 a.m. wake up. That's just ridiculously early.
Yeah, but I feel like they start school at like 8 in the US, don't they? Is it 9? I don't know.
Well, she stays in bed almost an hour, because it goes off at 6, and I think when she finally gets out, it's like 6:49 or something like that. So clearly she didn't need and then she just gets ready like that.
Yeah.
We basically establish their relationship here over breakfast and in the car ride, and then we just get the first day in each of their lives. So we get to see Lindsay Lohan at school, her friends, her teachers, her bullies and all that, and Jamie Lee Curtis at home with her fiance, who we'll talk about more in the characters. But so she's engaged. I guess this is the first day is probably the Thursday, and then the next day, the main day, is a Friday with having the rehearsal dinner and the band thing, right? I don't think they say that, but it probably
I guess
is.
It must be.
Yeah,
because they wake up the next day, which is the Friday.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Freaky.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
How many times have I seen this film?
I never actually thought about it.
Yeah. So not so Freaky Thursday.
Normal Thursday, Freaky Friday. But into Jamie Lee Curtis, so we see her very happy with her fiance. We see her running her errands. We see her wedding planning, and then we see her at work. We'll talk about this more in the characters later. But so she's a therapist, which we both realized is such a very, very important choice in the story, but also leads to some pretty funny things with her clients, both on the phone. This is actually one of the first scenes I flagged. So she hasn't gone into her office yet. She's talking to one of her patients, and she's saying something like, "Listen, you don't need a man. You're strong. You're beautiful. You just have to have confidence in yourself." And she says that as she's coming up to like the fish counter at the supermarket, and the woman says, "Thank you. I really needed that."
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's a funny bit. We also see Lindsay Lohan meeting Jake for the first time. Chad Michael Murray, the love interest. They both have a love interest. So Jamie Lee Curtis is Ryan, her fiance, who obviously is well established because they're engaged. But yeah, Jake, I think the idea is she's had a crush on him forever, right?
Yeah.
And then she finally meets him properly for the first time. They interact.
That's right. It's like the classic, like, she's dropped some stuff on the floor. He's helping her pick the things up. Green flag.
Yeah. And then they talk about music. It's like, oh, you like this band? I like this band.
I think they literally only ever talk about music, but it's like it's a big deal.
Yeah, especially at that age.
Yeah.
And then they come home, and then so Lindsay Lohan is in a band, and they're rehearsing at home. They play their music really loud. The music goes on for a while, and everyone in the house. So we get interested. There's the mum, younger brother Harry. There's a grandpa who's there as well, and everyone just kind of works around the music until it gets too loud. And then Jamie Lee Curtis pulls the plug, which causes a lot of conflict. The band get the call about the fact they're being invited to a big audition the next day, and this kind of sets in motion the drama that Lindsay Lohan wants to go to this band show, which will be the next day, which is at the same time as the rehearsal dinner, which Jamie Lee Curtis, needless to say, is not pleased about. And this is where they have there's been tension with them all day, and this is when they have their first big fight.
Yeah. I feel like Jamie Lee Curtis turns the music off at like 6 p.m, which, if we're thinking of normal school time finishing, they're playing probably for a good couple of hours. Feels very reasonable.
Yeah, I think the way it's shown is it's just one song, but they've probably been rehearsing for a while, because I'm sure they'd already agreed they would be rehearsing.
Yeah.
This is one of those that we've talked about, that when you're a kid, you're probably like, God, this mom's such a bitch. But then you realize the fact is this garage is completely set up as their rehearsal space. So they've obviously let them use the garage for this express purpose. And they obviously let them do this frequently.
Yeah.
And it's just this particular day is like, you're right, they've probably gone over the time that was allocated. So what a saint.
Yeah. And they can't hear anything. They're all shouting at each other, trying to have conversations. It would drive me crazy.
Yeah. So this whole introduction, this whole like first third of the movie is really good. There's fun scenes, but the drama is escalating, and we're really setting the scene of like these two people. And I think when they have their argument, there is the first time that they both express, well, mostly Lindsay Lohan is expressing the fact that my life is so hard, everything's easy for you, your life is so perfect. And Jamie Lee Curtis says, how can you think my life is so perfect? Like, you don't understand anything.
Yeah.
I believe that's said at this point. And then all this leads to the Chinese restaurant where they go, and I think they have another fight. I think that's it. I think it's when they have the fight at the Chinese restaurant is when she says these things about, you know, kind of stating the theme of Lindsay Lohan saying basically like, oh, I wish I had your life and you wouldn't survive a day in my life.
Yeah.
And this is where the grandmother of the Chinese restaurant owner basically sees them and decides to Freaky Friday them to kind of teach them a lesson. And her daughter is like, no, mama, don't do that.
Yeah. Classic.
Probably as good a time as any to talk about that Chinese restaurant aspect.
Yes.
So probably the biggest criticism of this movie is that it's kind of racist.
Yeah. I think I would give this film a 5 out of 5 on Letterboxd if not for this racial stereotype. So I knocked it down to a 4.5, which I'm not happy about. But this whole idea that Chinese people are going to be all like mystical and magical and exotic and you know, spellbinding and be able to make you switch bodies and things, like it's a very weird portrayal, and it kind of feels basically, I thought about this, so there's a lot of movies that do a similar type of thing, not switching, but like something a bit magical, and it doesn't really need to make any sense. Like 13 going on 30, there's some weird like magical fairy dust that she sprinkles on top of the dollhouse and she wishes she could be 30, then it just happens. And then there's 17 again, which I think is a bit more like what's the It's a Wonderful Life, where there's just like a crazy, there's a crazy man, and it's like, oh, I wish I could go back and live this, and then he just sort of like magics the person back to that age. So I kind of feel like they could have just done something like that. Like maybe Lindsay says, you don't understand my life, and like your life is so easy, or like we wish I could live your life for a day, and then just like slams her door, and then maybe they just like wake up the next day and it's happened. That would be so easy, but no.
So the interesting thing, so later on we're going to do the comparison with the book and the first movie. So in the book, it's the mother who inexplicably has the ability to do this. And in the 76 movie, it's kind of what you say. They just are both saying, I wish I could be her for a day, and then they just magically switch body. One of the things on Rotten Tomatoes that people were saying is like, oh, the premise is a bit ridiculous. And I just roll my eyes like, this isn't supposed to be a realistic movie. Yeah. It's just like, a lot of movies out there, it's just not sci-fi, but yeah, it's just a magical premise to kind of do an analysis of what would happen and be funny. So I agree that it could just be like in the old movie where they switch bodies. I think the idea of having these two, I think the Chinese mother and daughter are quite funny characters, and they're dynamic, especially at the end when the grandma threatens to do it again to the grandpa and Harry. But I do think the fact that they're the only Chinese characters in the movie and it's shown as this oriental magic thing is definitely, it's unnecessary to base. And they obviously thought it would be funny to have, these Chinese people do this, and that's early 2000s.
Yeah.
But it's not appropriate. But you wouldn't do it that way. So I was thinking, what would you do instead? And because it's, everyone in this movie pretty much is white, you could just have the white equivalent. And I realized in the Freakier Friday, you watched the trailer again the other day.
Yeah.
So they have a fortune teller do it who happens to be white. And I think they could have just done that. They could have had, it could have been some hippy dippy person, but they should have been white.
Yeah.
And I think they could have had a similar dynamic with a older grandma who's meddling in things that she shouldn't. I do think that adds a little something comedically, but they shouldn't have made them Chinese.
Yeah.
But
no, I agree with that.
It's a product of its time. There's a lot of, not full-blown racist, but sort of undertones of racism back then and stuff.
Yeah.
So then they have this. She kind of puts the curse or whatever on them, and then the switch happens after they go to bed, which I think is a really funny scene about they're sleeping there in their normal positions and they swap over. So Jamie Lee Curtis goes from being normally to just sort of being all hunched over and on her front, and the opposite. Lindsay Lohan goes from being all a mess to going sleeping like a saint. So I quite enjoy that. And this is about a quarter of the way into the movie, which is a good place for kind of enter the second act of, we've got all the build up, things have changed, now let's kind of take it from there. And then we get a nice little few minutes of comedy in the morning when they realize what has happened. And so Jamie Lee Curtis, I think both the I'm old and sort of touching herself and being like, that's not mine, that's definitely not mine.
Yeah.
Are there any bits there in the kind of the realized bit that stick out to you?
Oh, that's when she says she's like the crypt keeper.
Yes.
Yeah.
that was funny.
That was in one of my lines just because it's so dramatic.
Yeah.
No, I think it's oh God, actually one of the parts was for me, who likes to get her nails done, when Jamie Lee Curtis is looking at her new trashy nails as Lindsay Lohan, and you see in the first scene of the movie that she takes time to be doing her nails in fast motion, might I add. So that must have been a real stinger.
So we see them realize individually, then realize together, and then having to deal with the rest of the family. So the fiance, the brother, and the grandpa, and kind of hide it from them. So the approach they take is, we're going to get through this. We will switch lives. Then they go into the car ride, this is one of those where it pays off, having had the car ride before, which was sort of normal, and then having the car ride switched. And there is one of the things is the fact that the Harry is a little dick to Lindsay Lohan behind the mum's back in the first car ride, and then he does it again here. And then Lindsay Lohan as Jamie Lee Curtis says, you see what he's been doing behind your back this whole time?
Oh no, and the Elsa end before that, when they do the whole running at each other in the bedroom. That bit's quite funny.
Yeah, that's quite funny. Yeah, that was a good example of the comedy of the
physical comedy.
Yeah, physical comedy. And apparently that's a reference to some 60s or 70s TV show where it's a reference to some old movies where people sometimes have been split or have swapped, and they try and do that to come back together, and it does not work. But yeah, that's quite funny. So yeah, then they have the car. and just kind of realize we're kind of establishing all the things that are going to go wrong. So, for example, the fact that Jamie, the mum, we're gonna say the mum and the daughter when we're talking about the bodies. So the mum doesn't want the daughter in her body to kiss the fiance. So the mom doesn't want Jamie Lee Curtis to kiss, so she has to keep pretending. Oh, I think she says she's got a cold sore.
Yeah.
Which she doesn't.
No. And then they also meet Jake at the same time at the high school, which is when obviously Lindsay Lohan wants her mum to be nice to him and like walk with him and stuff. And I think at that point her mum has realised just how how much older he seems than Lindsay Lohan, so she's like, no, I'm not going to entertain this. But I think both of them are just trying to tell the other one to be nice to their respective men. And
this is where I think this whole scene is when the switching in the acting is so funny, because it's, to me, because I think at this point Lindsay Lohan, what she has to do is pretty easy, because she just has to be kind of stuck up and grumpy, like, oh no, don't do that, don't do this. But Jamie Lee Curtis acting like a 15-year-old is so funny. Like, the way she looks at Jake and it's like, ooh, talk to me, like, be nice and stuff like that. That's all really funny. Then there's the Stacy scene. So Stacy is this girl that Lindsay Lohan was friends with when they were younger, and Jamie Lee Curtis is like, why aren't you friends with Stacy? Why are you friends with Stacy? But they've basically just gotten to this point now where they hate each other. And so Jamie Lee Curtis, so the mom in Lindsay Lohan's body tries to be nice to Stacy, and then she just like pushes her over into a garbage.
I think she hugs her and then pulls her top up from behind, like over her head, and then she just goes flying. It's the classic thing. They always do this in the movies though, where Stacey Hinkhouse is meant to be this like cheerleader, like blonde, like girly girl, and obviously Lindsay Lohan's meant to be like this cool little rock chick or whatever, and it's like that's why they have split off and are not friends anymore. But Jamie Lee Curtis just thinks like, oh, it's just a misunderstanding, communication is all you need, or just be kind, and she obviously quickly realizes that's not the case. Stacey's just a bitch.
And this is the first clash between their realities, where Jamie Lee Curtis thought, oh, high school is so easy, be nice to Stacy, and now she's like, oh, it wasn't as easy as it seemed. Then we have the life, I think I call this the life switching section. So where Lindsay Lohan is in high school, so the mum is finding out what it's actually like. So being bullied by Stacy, the teacher being a dick to her, and Jamie Lee Curtis as the daughter is, so this bit I call it the fun and games, because to be fair, the mum as Lindsay Lohan doesn't really have much fun with it, except when she eats the French fries later, but she's not really enjoying it, whereas Jamie Lee Curtis as the daughter does have a few minutes here where she goes out, has a makeover, spends lots of money, and is just like having a ball, and then suddenly her phone start ringing and it's this back to reality. It's like, no, your life isn't all fun and games. It is, you've got a job to go to and you have to deal with all your crazy patients.
Oh my God, though, that is so stressful when her phone is going,
multiple phones.
Her multiple phones. And then when she gets into her office and like all the buttons are flashing and stuff. Just when I watched that when I was younger, even then I thought like, whatever she does, I don't want to do that. I don't ever want to be that busy.
Is it at this point the delivery guy called Boris comes in? Yeah. So in case I forget to mention it later, so I've already told you, but the actor who plays him is the actor who played the Jake character in the 1976 movie, and Boris with his name tag is a reference to that. So there's like 2 or 3 little Easter eggs that are references to the movies, but that's one of the biggest ones. And then I also like the Jamie Lee Curtis as the daughter's, her way of dealing with everything is just to cancel it. So she has like a root canal appointment and she's like, cancel it. And then the caterer calls for the wedding and she just cancels it. And then the big thing, kind of the big clash is, the big incidences that they each have at this point of the movie is Lindsay Lohan arguing with a teacher, and that happens just as the same time as Jamie Lee Curtis, the daughter, is talking to all of the different patients. So Evan, but also others. And in both cases, is a really well constructed scene because it goes back and forth. Because it starts off where they're both completely overwhelmed. Lindsay Lohan, the mum as Lindsay Lohan, thinks, oh, it's Hamlet, this is easy. And the teacher just asks some dumb guy and he gives nothing. And he's like, great, A for you. And then he asks Lindsay Lohan and she gives this great answer. And he's just like, you don't understand anything.
Overreaching,
yeah. And you're like, oh, she's completely out of her depth. And at the same time, Jamie Lee Curtis is just like, oh, I don't know what to say. But then both of them really smartly manage to take charge of the situation.
Yeah.
So The mom realizes the reason he's being a dick to her is because she actually rejected him back when they were teenagers, and she confronts him and just like calls him out, and basically, and we don't see that teacher again. It's like he's sorted, taken care of, and the daughter is Jamie Lee Curtis, just starts giving actual advice to this mom from a teenage point of view, which is quite funny.
Well, because before that, though, this is the funny thing. When they decide to live a day in each other's lives, they're like, we'll just get through this. And Jamie Lee Curtis tells her...
Don't say anything,
the mum says, well, don't say anything. You're not positioned to give advice. If you must ask a question, just ask, how do you feel about that? And so it shows her a bunch of times with different patients just being like, and how do you feel about that? And then just like making notes. And that one person who's like, and I've just been so depressed lately, and she's like, how do you feel about that? And they're like, depressed. Like, but that was before she starts actually giving advice, which was working okay.
Yeah, the one when the mum says that she's been reading her daughter's diary, and she obviously says, you can't do that.
Yeah, fair.
But yeah, and so this is where a lesser movie would have just spent another 20 minutes kind of going through the motions of, oh, it's funny because they've switched lives, but they don't do that. Jamie Lee Curtis gets the car and picks up Lindsay Lohan, and they basically go with we need to fix this.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is where in the 76 movie, there is none of this. They just spend the whole movie just trying to live each other's lives, which, you know, that can be funny. It's not that funny in that movie. But here, I feel like you get a good amount of that. You enjoy it. And they're obviously going to keep living each other's lives. And I think that's it. You can keep doing the funny things as they do, but it's just good that the story keeps going.
Yeah.
So they reunite. They go back to the Chinese restaurant, and they have said, how do we fix this? And long story short, they basically said, you need to do what's written on the fortune cookie. And the fortune cookie basically I think at this point they don't have the fortune cookie, so they need to go back and find it. Mm-hmm. But what the fortune cookie basically says is you need to walk a mile in someone else's shoes. You need to learn to be selfless.
Yeah.
And kind of show compassion. And this is where they now both say something alluding to the fact that life was better before. They both preferred being in their bodies before. Which, that's it. In the 76 movie, the way they switch back is they just they get to the end where everything has gone completely to shit, and they both say at the same time, I wish I was back in my body, and then they switch back.
Yeah.
And that's it.
So easy.
And this is actually the midpoint when they kind of, now is like the mission is going to be to get back into each other's bodies. And this is one of my favorite scenes, is the parent-teacher meeting. So Jamie Lee Curtis, as the daughter, goes to Harry's teacher. And it's funny because the teacher is obviously trying to say good things about Harry, but... Oh yeah, we forgot to say there is we've alluded to the fact there's the whole brother, sister. So he's about 10 maybe?
Yeah,
he's 10, she's 15, and they supposedly hate each other. But the teacher just pulls out the essay, and the essay is basically, I love my sister. She's amazing, and she's the best person ever. And that's just really cute.
Yeah.
And I think, this is where it stops from just being like they've switched lives and it's funny to... She gets to see the other side about for example, here her brother loves her, and then she comes out and talks to him. He's like, "Oh, please don't tell her. Please, like, I love the attention, messing around."
Yeah, that is really cute.
So that's Jamie Lee Curtis, and I think similarly around the same time, Lindsay Lohan tries to make up with Stacy.
Oh yeah.
And Stacy's like, "Oh, sit next to me in this test." And Stacy just throws her under the bus and basically says, "Oh, she's cheating."
Yeah.
And she gets kicked out. She bumps into Jake again. She had seen him coming out of detention and had assumed that he was also in detention as well. But we find out here that actually he was just working.
He just has a million jobs, and one of them is some sort of teacher's assistant or something like that.
But he helps her basically correct her test. So this is the mum in Lindsay Lohan. But instead of just correcting her tests, what does she do?
She rubs out all the answers from Stacey Hinkhouse's test, and he sees her do this. And then I think when they leave the room, and she's sanitizing his bike, ready to hop on, he's like, I actually think you might be too young for me. I did see what you did to Stacey's test. Like, that's not cool. Which is, again, good marks for him. He wasn't having her cheat on her test. He was just having her retake it. And then good moral compass that he recognized that rubbing out somebody else's test answers is not cool. So...
And a really interesting parallel, again, that I only noticed this last time, is while this is happening, same as the teacher and the clients, and therapy clients, is while the cheating thing is happening, Jamie Lee Curtis is having the interview done, and she's she's acting in a really funny way that's getting a lot of attention, but the whole interview was set up by her fiance, Ryan, who by this point realizes something is off, but he's still going along with this. And he's quite pissed off with her because it's obviously Lindsay Lohan talking about fairly serious stuff in a very cavalier way. And so both of their love interests get pissed off at them at the same time, which obviously is a problem for each of them.
Yeah.
They don't care intrinsically. The mom doesn't care that she's... I think even she does get offended when he says, like, oh, you're acting like a child. Probably 'cause she's like, but I'm a grown woman. But she doesn't care about losing Jake. And similarly, at this point, the mom... Similarly, the daughter in Jamie Lee Curtis's body isn't too bothered about pissing off Ryan, but it's kind of like this is where the stakes are getting heightened here because they're really messing with something serious. And then after this, by pure coincidence, Jamie Lee Curtis bumps into Jake at one of his million jobs at the coffee shop, and this is where they start. This is a cute scene when they start talking about music and start having coffee, and they basically have this moment.
Yeah, it's a very funny scene to watch, but you are just like, what are you doing? Like, it is. I think this is where, as he obviously grows more and more fond of her, and this isn't even the worst. The worst of it is to come. One of my favorite lines is where she says, Lindsay Lohan, "Well, he definitely likes you for your mind."
Your mind, yeah,
because obviously he has completely grown attached to her through their bond of music. And
but but it's such a great scene because Chad Michael Murray plays it perfectly because he's literally playing it as if Lindsay Lohan is sat opposite him.
Yeah,
he's being flirty. He's like looking at her and stuff, but it's not her. It's Jamie Lee Curtis, and obviously she's playing it as if she is Lindsay Lohan, but she's not. It's her body. Yeah. And it is just and I think you see people around them are just staring at them like, what is going on? So that is actually like, I think visually like one of the funnier scenes. And then Jake gives Jamie Lee Curtis a ride on the motorbike, which is one of your favorite scenes.
It is, because she's like got her arms wrapped around him and like the cat that got the cream kind of smile on her face, and she happens to pull up next to Ryan's car on their drive back to the house, and obviously he's just like,
I think he does a double take,
like,
doesn't he?
Tess, and then she's just like smiling, riding off into the sunset with Chad.
So then they go home. They find the fortune cookie. They realize about the selfless thing, but they're both like, I don't really understand what this means. And this is where Ryan stands up for himself and basically says, because this is shortly after seeing him on the motorcycle, he says, what is going on? Like, we're getting married tomorrow. Have you got anything to tell me? And there's actually quite a cute scene because good for him. He's standing up for himself because it is pretty crazy. But then Lindsay Lohan comes and basically they use this to say, so Lindsay Lohan, who is the mum, says that Jake is her friend and that Jamie Lee Curtis was just checking him out. Wait, which way does it go?
So she's saying, oh, my mum was just checking him out, so he was giving her a ride home, and she's come to find that he's actually a really, fine young man or something. So
Lindsay Lohan says that.
No, her mum is saying it in Lindsay Lohan's
but it's Lindsay Lohan's body who's saying it. Okay, so it is actually the mum who is genuinely giving the approval. It's not a trick or something.
No,
it's not as though the daughter in Jamie Lee Curtis is, oh, and I really approve of him. Yeah, it's not that. Yeah, okay, so that's quite sweet because obviously she has realized because he called her out on her shit. Yeah, he called Lindsay Lohan out. So the mum gives her stamp of approval.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's and that kind of relieves the tension with Ryan because it is a reasonable explanation. So that's a cute scene. And then shortly after, Jake starts serenading Jamie Lee Curtis, and I think that's a nice little comedic break because things have gotten a bit serious there for a few minutes, and Lindsay Lohan rugby tackles him.
For such a beautiful man, he's got a really, really ugly voice.
I mean, I feel like that's one.
He's probably putting it on, but he's singing "Baby One More Time" outside the window or shrieking it, and then Lindsay Lohan rugby tackling him. I love the sound of the smack as she like slaps into him and throws him out the way, basically, just as they're all coming out the house.
When I was watching the behind the scenes, they said like, "Oh, this is so much more than just the actors. It's the production. It's the production, it's the makeup artist, it's the stunt crew." And then they said stunt, and I was like, what are they talking? And they showed the shot of that, because it's true, something like that, it is stunt people, because they're not going to have someone actually rugby tackle Chad Michael Murray. So then they have the rehearsal dinner, but at this point, the band thing is happening that night, and she still hasn't let her go. And her friends try and kidnap her, but they get caught.
Yeah, so the friends come to
They try and take
kidnap.
Lindsay Lohan, who's
Yes.
the mum.
But at the same time, Jamie Lee Curtis has spotted Jake, who's also crashed and is hiding behind the bar bit. So they're both on their hands and knees, like she's telling him to leave. And then I think at the same time, Ryan has found Lindsay Lohan,
Yes.
who's being kidnapped
Yeah.
by her friends, and was like, "Oh, we've got a couple of gate crashers."
Yeah, that's it. And so he's the one who says you should go to both of them, basically. And so he says to her that she should go. And obviously Lindsay Lohan doesn't want to go because she's the mum. But by this point, she has to go because her friends are taking her. And then, again, sweet Ryan says to Jamie Lee Curtis, go. It's 20 minutes away. I was saying this takes place in I don't know, it's California. I'm not sure if it's actually Los Angeles. But they're very lucky for the venue. It's 20 minutes away from this. But... You know what? I'd rather they do it that way, and it's a bit silly, than them not allude to the time. And it's like, oh, I'll just be gone for a few minutes. It's like, well, no, it's probably going to be an hour each way and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So they go. Then they have the band performance, which is obviously iconic. This is one of your favorite scenes.
Yeah.
So how does it go?
So I think they're just playing one song as their audition type thing at the Wango Tango, whatever it is. And Lindsay Lohan obviously has a guitar solo that's supposed to come up. Her solo's coming up, but her mum, or like actual Lindsay, who's backstage, then unplugs her guitar and obviously plugs herself in. And then she's telling her to just go out there and act like Keith Richards. She's like, just, basically air guitar and fake it, and I'll be playing the real tune from over here. And obviously the solo sounds excellent, but it looks so funny because Lindsay's just like bopping back and forth with this big smile on her face. Her fingers aren't doing what they should be doing on the guitar, and I'm sure anyone who was paying close attention would know, but just on the face of it, it's just a very comical scene.
It's funny because a lot of the behind the scenes talks about how the fact that she trained for a couple of months, because at the beginning when Lindsay Lohan is the daughter, she does do a proper scene where she plays it. But it's funny, they were like, yeah, do all this training, but also we need a scene where you need to play the guitar like you don't know how to play the guitar.
Yeah. What a good song, though.
Yes. We'll talk about that more in the music. So then they go back to the rehearsal dinner, and then it's the big emotional climax, if you'd like to take us through that.
Yeah, so at this point, they think they're not going to be switching back. So Jamie Lee Curtis basically says to Lindsay Lohan, that, I'm going to need you to go over there and call off the wedding. Ryan will understand, or like postpone the wedding, I think she's saying. Ryan will understand. And then Lindsay, in Jamie Lee Curtis's body, goes over to have this conversation with Ryan, but instead proposes a toast and basically then just says so many sweet things about how, they had this big change in their family. They lost,
So we haven't officially stated that, but basically the background is that the dad, so Jamie Lee Curtis's husband, Lindsay Lohan, and Harry's dad died 3 years before in tragic circumstances. And then I think it is alluded to previously that Lindsay Lohan is quite upset about the fact that she sees her mum as having moved on maybe too quickly.
Yeah.
And that's the source of a lot of the tension between them. And then this is kind of that tension being relieved.
Yeah, and she basically just says, this was a really horrible thing that happened, but then Ryan came along and I think she says something like quite cute about, if for the right person, we would all just make a little room and basically just cheers to the happy couple sort of thing.
So yeah, the mum was being selfless by saying, I will delay the wedding because I think that's what's best for you. But then the daughter is being selfless by not doing it, she has the power to do it and then doesn't. And then the earthquake happens, which kind of says, and then switches them back immediately.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Selfless love.
Selfless love. And yeah, and it's a very emotional bit because you've gotten to know both these characters. They're both very flawed, but they don't have a bad heart, and they're both struggling through some stuff. And yeah, they have both, that's the whole point of these movies, is to have someone learn their lesson, and they have learned their lesson.
Yeah.
It's cute. And then there's just a cute sort of epilogue with the wedding. Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis have a little cute moment. Jamie Lee Curtis is super happy with Ryan. Lindsay Lohan and Jake get on and have their first proper smooch, which apparently was Lindsay Lohan's first on-screen kiss.
Oh.
the worst people to have it with.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the funny ending with the Chinese mother and grandma who've become the caterers for the wedding, and the grandfather. We'll talk about more in the characters. He's just sort of there for comic relief, but him and the brother have a funny moment where, and the Chinese grandmother sort of threatens to switch them because they have a similar moment where I think you like the line. What does the grandpa say?
He tells Harry to go ask that other little girl to dance, and then Harry's like, no, you ask her. And then the old man the grandpa's like, oh, that's true what they say, youth is wasted on the young.
Yeah, and then the grandma is like looking at them like, oh, I should switch them, and her daughter's like, no, stay out of it. And then we just end with Lindsay Lohan playing one of her, so I think this is her first major single that launched her music career, Ultimate, which is, you know what, for the genre of music and movie, it's a decent song.
It's a great song.
So I think this is as good a time as any to talk about the differences between the book versus the 1976 movie versus this movie here. So I've narrowed it down to 7 major differences. So we've both read the book. What did you think of the book, Sonita?
Absolutely terrible.
It's so bad.
It's so bad.
It's a kids. It's a 140-page kids book. So the pages are short. The font is big, but it was still excruciating to get through.
It's like it was written by a child.
Yeah.
Like if I think about stories that I wrote when I was in primary school, it's almost
Yeah, I agree.
like that, but just longer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If it was, I think that was it. If it was 50 pages and it was written pretty badly, you'd get over it. But it is still 140 pages, and it's so. Again, it's why I said before, the idea is good, the concept is good, but it's just a terrible execution.
Yeah.
And then the movie is slightly better, but it's still really bad. But I think the fact that it is the same writer of the book and the first movie is not a coincidence. Unfortunately, Mary Rodgers was not a very good writer. And it's probably a reason why she didn't really write anything else. She had one good idea and poorly executed it. So here are my main 7 differences. So the first one is the location. So in the original book, it takes place in a New York City apartment, which is kind of crazy. That just seems so weird. This is better. They move it to LA in the 76 movie, and then apparently it is Southern California in the 2003 one. How the switch happens. In the 2003 movie, it's the fortune cookies. In the 76 movie, it's spontaneous. They just say, I wish I could spend a day. And then in the book, it's the mum that makes it happen. The structure is an interesting one, because we both started reading the book and we're like, this seems like it's only from the daughter's point of view. And it is. The whole book, the main body of the book, is all from the daughter's point of view. She doesn't cross paths with the mum in her body. It's not even clear that the switch has happened. It might have just been a one-way thing.
Yeah.
But then we find out in the end, in an epilogue, that the mum actually made it happen and she's been in her body, but she was pretending not to. So very weird. But then obviously Mary Rodgers thought, it would actually be funnier if we saw both of them, which is what they do in the movie. So in the movie, they're apart most of the movie, living their own lives, and they come back together. No, they don't even come back together at the end until they've switched back. I don't think they ever interact.
Until they've switched back, yeah.
They never interact while they've switched. And whereas in this one, they interact a lot during the movie, which I think is good, because some of the best scenes are when they're together, when they're bouncing off each other, being each other. Then the mum, the character of the mum is very different. So in this movie, she is obviously a working mum with a fiance who's a therapist, and those are like her main. And she's not meant to be unattractive, but she's not meant to be attractive either. She's like the crypt keeper and old and needs a makeover and stuff like that. Whereas in both the book and the 76 film, the mother is meant to be kind of like a bombshell.
Yeah.
Like in the book, they talk at length about how jealous the daughter is, about how attractive the mother is.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, it's weird. And then the woman who plays her in the movie is attractive, but they're also in both of them. She's meant to be kind of dumb. She's a bit of a bimbo, I guess. Yeah. And she smokes, which is, even though it's an old movie, is meant to be a negative thing. And she's a stay-at-home mum in both of those. So just a much less interesting character.
Yeah.
Next is the love interest. Obviously, it's Jake in this one. And in the book/movie, it's Boris or Morris. They've got this thing, both in the book and the movie, that is this guy who they all think is called Boris, but he's got really congested.
Yeah.
And and it's so painful to read because it's written of him being congested. So, like, oh, my name is like Morris. And if you do it like that, you can't tell.
Yeah.
And so one of the big reveals is that his name is actually Morris and not Boris. And it's like, wait, so you wrote 3 or 4 pages of him speaking weirdly just to have this joke about getting his name wrong?
Which doesn't change anything.
It doesn't.
It like
nothing.
They're both hideous names.
Yeah, and
like,
he's not interesting.
No.
Yeah, and in the movie, he's not even sorry to the actor, but it's not like he's hot already because Chad Michael Murray is hot. We can all accept that. So it's just it's a very weird choice about what they made him look like, and so he does have the thing where he falls in love with the mum in the other two, but it's just weird and creepy.
But I think the thing is that they're younger, aren't they? Or they seem like they're younger. Like the daughter seems younger, he seems younger, or like
I think
maybe
it was a different time. Maybe they're a couple of years. Maybe they're 13, 14 instead of being 15, 16.
Well, I can't remember if the movie was like this, but in the book, the whole thing that gets him to be more attracted to the mum is like that she plays games with him.
Yeah.
Which is very like juvenile.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't.
But I mean, it was the 70s, so and it was meant to be a wholesome. It was. I think they are meant to be 14, 15, 16, but the book is meant for, preteen children. So I think they wanted to keep it very wholesome.
Yeah.
Then the resolution is different as well. And again, all of these basically the pattern is pretty consistent. That they was pretty boring in the first one, then they made it slightly more interesting, but very similar to the book in the 76 movie, and they did something completely different but much more interesting in the 2003 movie. So just finishing on Jake, actually, I think the fact that he has a similar thing where he falls for her, but then but the fact that he doesn't like the mum in Lindsay Lohan's body is something completely new and interesting because it gives him more depth. It shows that he's got good morals and stuff. And then rather than have this creepy thing where he loves her for playing cards with him, the fact that he's likes her for the music and stuff, likes her for her mind, but then serenades her is just like a really funny thing.
Yeah.
Then the resolution is very different. So in the book, again, terrible structure. It just sort of ends. Like everything's gone to shit, and then just like that, I think she just wakes up and she's back in her body, and it turns out her mum had switched them deliberately and just decided to unswitch them. And then in the movie, the 1976 movie, they just both say, "Oh, I wish I was back in my body," and they switch back. Whereas here, I mean, this is very 2000s, 90s Disney movies of we need to learn how to improve ourselves, but it's much more emotionally rewarding to have two people go on a journey, culminate the journey, and they get rewarded by getting what they wanted, which is switching back.
It actually means something.
Exactly.
So which just makes it feel more worthwhile.
Otherwise, what's the point of it?
Yeah.
There is no point.
I remember my teachers at school used to tell me writing a story and then ending it with and then I woke up, and then it was all a dream is like, really, really bad writing, and that just kind of I know this wasn't a dream, but that's how the earlier version in the book kind of feel to me. It just feels a bit like lazy and not very well thought through.
Honestly, the thing is, the 1976 movie had good reviews. They actually had very similar ratings on Rotten Tomatoes as this one, which brings me to one of my points. I'm not arguing over. I think there were terrible movies then, and I actually think maybe terrible movies now are worse than they were in the 70s or whatever. But I think, and there were great movies in the past and there are great movies now. But I think that sort of, let's call it second tier great movies. Like this wasn't nominated for Oscars or anything, and I think no one is arguing they should. But I think good, not great movies are so much better now than they were, let's go say, back then. Because of the fact that I think it's mostly the writing and the acting. Yeah. I just think nowadays you can't get away with just an hour of just, funny things happening. There needs to be a story arc. There needs to be good writing. There needs to be like good pacing and all of that. And I think just people have a much higher bar to what makes a good movie, let alone a great movie. And I think this is a perfect example. I think one of the things I read is that the 76 movie, because the two actresses are good in it. I mean, I'm not saying they're bad, but I don't think they're that interesting because of what they're given to play with. But a lot of the reviews at the time said the movie's not great, but they're great. It was a good vehicle for them to show, especially Jodie Foster, to show what a good actress she was as a kid. But yeah, I didn't watch that and say, you can tell that this woman is going to be like one of the greatest actresses for a generation.
No. Even though she's great.
Yeah, she is, but
not from that.
Yeah, like when you see Natalie Portman as a child actress,
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, obviously anyone could see that and be like, she'll probably go on to great things, which she did. But yeah, that's the difference in the 70s and the 90s. So that's the 7 things: the location, how the switch happens, the structure, the mum, the love interest, and the resolution. The only really consistent thing, I guess, is the sort of Jake Morris Boris falling in love with the mum. But then the other thing is the brother theme. But that's another one. The brother theme in the book is like the main thing. The fact that they hate each other, but he actually loves her. And it's an interesting thing to have in the story. I think it's cute. But that can't be the whole focus of it. So, yeah, that's a shame. I mentioned before the Easter egg. So references in the 2003 one to the book. So there's the Boris delivery man.
Yeah.
Then there's at one point the grandpa calls Harry Monkey as a nickname, which in the book and I believe in the movie as well, his nickname is Ape Face.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that's not an accident. And the other one I came up with is something about eat your sister's cereal.
Yeah.
Which you pointed out. So in the 2003 one, when Jamie Lee Curtis, after the switch, tells Harry to go eat his sister's cereal, which I guess is her cereal.
Yeah.
But that's something that, happens.
Yeah, she's like, well, you can go and eat Anna's cereal, my cereal.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, well, she'll get mad at me. And she's like, no.
It'll be fine.
Yeah. Hun.
There's a lot of that when they first happens. In fact, they keep... Or when she has to talk to Ryan, when Jamie Lee Curtis talk to Ryan as the daughter, and there's a lot of funny stuff there. So in conclusion, I think comparing the 3, we could say it was a good concept that Mary Rogers came up with, but the execution and the application has just gotten better with each of the iterations. So the further we've gotten from Mary Rogers, the better.
Yeah, agreed.
Now let's talk about the actors and characters. So obviously, I think we've talked about... Yeah, we've talked about it from a plot point of view. We can delve a bit more into what they were actually going through. But let's start with Lindsay Lohan, and I'll give you some background on her career. First of all, have you seen the people who could have been this character that weren't?
No,
Some of these are crazy. Michelle Trachtenberg was fully cast for it. She was going to do it, but she had to pull out because of her schedule filming Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But she was signed up. And also, and this is crazy, she also turned down Parent Trap.
What?
So she could have had Lindsay Lohan's career, basically.
Oh my god, that is kind of crazy. Because beyond Buffy, I know she did. She was in 17 again as the daughter, but I don't remember much else that she did.
Yeah, so it's crazy that she gets very different career.
But also, Buffy was great. I mean, she was in it for ages, so fair enough.
And also, rest in peace.
Yeah.
And then other people who were considered were Misha Barton, Kristen Stewart, Brie Larson. These were all women who were around that age at the time, so they all vied for it. Apparently, Lindsay Lohan's audition didn't go very well, but it was because of how good she was in The Parent Trap and the fact that she had really good chemistry with Jamie Lee Curtis that got her the role. So, do you know much about Lindsay Lohan's career sort of before this?
No, I mean, I remember watching The Parent Trap, and then I don't know anything else.
Apparently she started modeling from the age of 3. You know, she's got her parents were kind of crazy.
Oh.
And basically, you know, you have to be crazy at 3, make your kid. So she was modeling. Apparently she did modeling for Calvin Klein and Abercrombie. And then she did over 60 national TV commercials for the likes of Pizza Hut, Wendy's. And there's a really weird Jell-O ad with Bill Cosby that she's in.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so she did. So she was like apparently when she started acting at 10, she already considered herself an industry veteran. She got a role on a soap opera called Another World, but she left it after a year to make The Parent Trap, which was a great career move. And obviously that was a huge hit. Everyone was like, she's a star. We'll do The Parent Trap one day. Obviously, like, that is fantastic. And then, but then weirdly, you'd think, oh, I bet she had a bunch of stuff between Parent Trap and this. Also, it's crazy to think it was only 4 or 5 years.
I was going to ask how many years. I was thinking like 6 or 7.
No, 4 or 5. Because she was 10 or 11 there, and she's 15, 16 when she makes this. So, but obviously she grew up a lot here. But yeah, she was working, but she didn't have anything major. She just had a lot of kind of hit and misses. She was on She played Betty Midler's daughter in a sitcom, in the pilot for a sitcom called Betty, like sort of starring her. But then they moved the production from LA to New York, and she basically dropped out. So she's only credited as being in the pilot. Just a bunch of random stuff, which again surprised me but I guess this is why maybe hiring her for Freaky Friday seems a bit risky. But then did Freaky Friday. Everyone's like, she's amazing again. Next year, does Mean Girls.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And this I would argue, you'd think you know her career better than like the average person stuff, but you probably still think, well, she probably had a good few years after that. But no, I think, so nothing ever grossed more than that, but it's kind of declined after that.
Yeah, I know she did some real flops. We watched one, Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen or something like that I thought was going to be good because it had her in it, and that was really bad, in my opinion. I assume it was badly rated. And then I've got Labour Pains written down as another movie where she faked a pregnancy. That was like excruciating to watch.
Yeah, that was a few years later. But basically, after one, did you ever see the Herbie movies on Disney?
No.
It's about this old Volkswagen Beetle that looked like a piece of shit, but it was actually like a good race car.
Oh, sorry, no, I do remember this. I feel like maybe I watched one.
There was a few, but then she was in one, Herbie Fully Loaded. I remember seeing that on the Disney Channel and thinking, oh, wow, Lindsay Lohan's really in everything at the moment. And that was fine. But then she was in this rom-com with Chris Pine called Just My Luck.
Oh, wait, sorry. You can't talk badly about that film. It's got McFly in it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, the reviews weren't very good.
Okay. It's a great movie.
Have you seen it then?
I've seen it so many times.
Oh.
Are you joking?
I
Me and
mean,
my sisters have watched it.
I hadn't heard about
Pauline
it.
and Evie love it.
I hadn't heard about it until researching this.
It's not a great movie, but it's a great movie for some people.
Okay, well, it did terribly commercially and was
fine.
seen as a bomb for her.
All right.
But then she tried to do some serious stuff that it seems like people said she was good in it, but nothing enough to fully change the trajectory of her career. Movies A Prairie Home Companion, Bobby, which is about the JFK, which was about the Kennedys, Chapter 27. But then she just did lots of bombs. So like Just My Luck, Georgia Rule. Have you heard of a movie called I Know Who Killed Me?
Yes.
Have you seen it?
Oh, have I seen it? Oh, God, I don't know if I've seen it. I feel like I have.
It's considered one of the worst movies of all time.
Oh, God.
It has 9% of Rotten Tomatoes. It has 2.9 on IMDb. It was nominated for 8 Razzies and won 7 of them. So this all happened also around the time when her personal life, she was a drunk, she was druggy.
Yeah, she was on all the things, and she, I think, was getting closer with like Paris Hilton, and she was seen in the kind of party scenes, I guess.
And it does seem like actually it wasn't so much being in the bad movies that ruined her reputation, but it was the fact that she became really unprofessional and really unreliable. She would just not turn up to shoots. I think at one point she had to go to hospital and stuff and claimed it was exhaustion, but the director that she was working with at the time was like, no. And I think she had dehydration or something. It's because you were out drinking till 5 a.m. the night before. And she basically got banished from Hollywood. She did little things here or there, but basically nothing for a good 10 years. Until she signed her Netflix deal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So she started with Falling for Christmas, which I have seen, and have you seen it multiple times?
Yeah, 2 years in a row.
And then she signed a 2-movie deal with Netflix to make Irish Wish and Our Little Secret, which have all done very well on Netflix. They've all probably I think they've all gotten at least 100 million views. Mm-hmm. So, Sonita, you like all 3 of these movies?
No, I like Falling for Christmas and Our Little Secret.
And Irish Wish?
I didn't really like Irish Wish. Do you want me to share my Letterboxd ratings for them?
Yes, please.
So Falling for Christmas, I gave 3 out of 5. Might be somewhat generous to some people. She's an hotel heiress who has a skiing accident, who then ends up with amnesia, and she's then taken in by a handsome B&B owner, who, of course, she then falls in love with.
Of course.
It's everything that I want in a Netflix Christmas movie. So it's ridiculous as a story. It's funny. It has heart. The acting's not great, but it doesn't take itself too seriously. So that was quite a strong comeback, in my opinion. Then she made Irish Wish, which is not a Christmas movie. That one, is a 2-star for me, so not very good. The love of her life is getting married. She makes a wish and she wakes up as the bride to be. So like kind of funny really, as this whole like Freaky Friday swap situation, but I can't remember what happens in the end, and I probably will not watch that one again. Our Little Secret, the strongest of the three in my opinion.
Wow.
3.5 out of 5. Not bad. Two exes forced to spend Christmas together after finding out that their two current partners are siblings, and it just eventually kind of like comes to fruition during the movie, like heated dinner table, you know, people being like, do you two know each other? Like, where's all this coming from? What I would say is these are not great movies, but I like Falling for Christmas and Our Little Secret. And what I have, so you have your great Christmas movies, Elf, Home Alone, you know, It's a Wonderful Life. And then I enjoy, as you know, some terrible Christmas movies that I also watch most years. And I think 2 of her Netflix movies fall into that category for me.
Yeah, I watch the classics with Sonita, and then those I let you indulge by yourself.
Those are my daytime Christmas movies, like when work is slowing down, you know.
Mm-hmm. So here, this brings me on to my next question. Why do millennial women, and I want you to speak for all millennial women here, why do you guys love Lindsay Lohan so much?
So I have my own personal opinions, I would say. She was there. She's a gem. So she was there in our childhood with The Parent Trap. She made, obviously, Freaky Friday and Mean Girls, which I think are 2 iconic movies. So how can you not like her? She's just a likable gal. There's not many flame-haired beauties out there around a similar age. She's just very unique, I would say. And then I think that taking a dark turn for the party girl lifestyle, you think that's it, I've lost her, she's never coming back, and then bam, she comes back to make these Christmas movies on Netflix. So, and Freakier Friday. I'm not saying she's my favourite actress, but I think it's hard to argue that she is very talented and I think likeable, and she has range. Look at all the movies, they're all very big span. I'm going to put Just My Luck in there because you reminded me of it. Great one.
Fair enough.
Yeah, got a soft spot for her.
It's an interesting one. I get the nostalgia element of her as a kid, and I love Freaky Friday and Parent Trap and Mean Girls as well. But I guess for me, as a guy, the nostalgia element didn't translate to me having a particular interest in I'll see a movie that she's in. I'm excited for Freakier Friday because it's the Freaky Friday sequel. But for me, it doesn't translate in an interest in what she's doing now. But that's good for her. Mm-hmm. Good for Netflix. Maybe not the best thing for cinema in general, but if there's an audience, then... And she seems to be happily married in Dubai now with a child, apparently. So
I didn't know that. That's good to know.
Good that she's got her shit together.
Yeah.
So now that we've talked about Lindsay Lohan's life, let's talk about her in Freaky Friday. So why do you think her character is so compelling?
I think because on the face of it, she seems quite like rebellious and like, you know, somewhat cool if you were 12 when you first watched it. The idea of her being in a pretty much all female, like, you know, pop punk band and like actually being quite smart at school, but also having this like, you know, life's just out to get her type attitude. I don't know. She just, I think when you're that sort of age is quite appealing. And then I feel like her relationships as well, so like the Chad Michael Murray like character Jake, like everybody has, you know, probably not that level of attractive guy at their school, but like someone that they fancied and like had the whole thing. So just trying to like navigate your way through. So I think she's quite like relatable, I guess, in that sense.
Yeah, I think she does a good balance between, on the one hand, being the oh my god everyone hates me annoying teen, but also having redeeming qualities, like being a good friend and working hard on her music. And in the other iterations, there's this thing about her not filling in her assignment and stuff.
Yeah.
And not being good at school, like struggling and stuff like that. So I think it is good in this one that it isn't that. It is more of a case that her teacher hates her.
Yeah.
And so she is actually being, like, the world is actually against her in some ways, as the mum comes to find. And then obviously from an acting point of view, the fact that she's then able to play the mum so well is amazing.
I think, as you say, though, it's like more challenging for Jamie Lee Curtis to do the acting of the body switch, but I do feel like Lindsay Lohan does a good job of being like...
I think she does as good as anyone could in that particular role. Well, that takes us nicely to Jamie Lee Curtis. So we will not go through Jamie Lee Curtis' entire career because it spans decades and decades, but obviously she's super famous for the Halloween movies. She's been in 5 or 6 of those.
Yeah.
She was also she was considered a sex symbol in the 80s with Perfect and the famous leotard scene. And then one of the things I really remember her for, probably even more than this, was True Lies with Arnold Schwarzenegger. It came out in 94, so about 9 years before that's when she's a bit younger. And she's just, because obviously in Halloween it's not at all funny. I mean, it's maybe a bit unintentionally funny, but it is. Yeah. She's a scream queen in that. But she obviously is a really funny actress as well.
And in Christmas with the Cranks, if we're mentioning low quality movies that I appreciate that also are part of my annual Christmas movie watch, starring Stacey Hinkhouse, as you reminded me, as her daughter.
Yeah.
Called Blair. She's Jamie Lee Curtis is quite funny in that movie.
Yeah.
Again.
And then obviously she won her Oscar for Everything Everywhere All the Time.
All at Once.
Ah, damn it. I almost got it. I always get this one wrong, but pretty close. And then obviously we love her in The Bear as well.
Yeah. So, she's so good in The Bear.
Because the first Halloween must have been in the 70s.
Yeah.
So she's been around. Like, if we've just named good movies that she's in the 70s, Halloween, 80s, Perfect, 90s, True Lies, 2000s, Freaky Friday, 2010s. Okay, I'm sure there's something.
Well, 2010s would be.
I think Everywhere was in the 2020s.
Oh, fine.
But
and the Halloween where she made a comeback.
Yeah.
So she was probably in a bunch of those.
I'm sure she was in something in the 2010s. But yeah, crazy career, great actress. I watched a couple of interviews with her. She just also seems like a cool person.
Yeah.
She said when she was promoting Freaky Friday, but she was saying this was easy for me because I feel like a child all the time. But honestly, the way she carries herself, I was like, actually, she wasn't really acting when she was doing Lindsay Lohan. She seems just kind of a bit. I don't know what the word is, but she just seems fun.
Yeah.
And stuff. Apparently, she took like a serious break from acting as well to raise her children, which I think is always a good thing to do.
That's respectable.
But yeah, she's great. And so I think she plays the mum really well, where you can both see how kids will be like, oh, Miss Serious Mum and stuff. But also when you watch it as a bit more grown up, you totally relate with the fact that she has, obviously she's happy with her man, which is great. But she has got a lot of stressful things, and, her work is stressful, the wedding's stressful, but you can see that it genuinely hurts her, the fact that her daughter is unhappy and doesn't like her and stuff like that. And yeah, and so that's like the serious side, and then obviously just being her daughter the whole time is just so funny. As I said, the physical comedy, the jokes, the way she talks. Oh yeah, I saw some really funny stuff about how she had to. I noticed that whenever she tries to speak more like the daughter, she just says like all the time.
Yeah.
And then apparently Lindsay Lohan had to teach her how to say shut up properly. Because Lindsay Lohan has a particular way of saying "shut up," and Jamie Lee Curtis wasn't doing it right. So she's like, "No, you have to like go." Maybe I'm not even doing it right, but she's like, "No, you need to like stop here and then do this and stuff." So that was quite funny. I've got some of the actresses that they considered before Jamie Lee Curtis because she was a last minute addition. Initially, they wanted Jodie Foster to come back because she would have been about the right age.
Yeah,
but I think Jodie Foster didn't think it was a good idea, and they decided it would bring too much attention on that aspect and less on the newness of the movie.
Right.
Madonna was interested in it.
Really?
Didn't get it. I feel like for a lot of these, Madonna's come up as a possibility, but luckily she never gets them.
No.
But the important one is Annette Bening. So she's the main woman from American Beauty with Kevin Spacey, one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah.
She was fully cast. I think it was her and... Oh, yeah. She was fully cast for it. And then she decided... Why did she decide not... Oh, yeah. She decided not to do it. I think she thought the script was a bit weak, which... we'll talk about this more in the script, but it does seem like there was an initial version of the script, which is probably what they used to hire the actors, that was quite different from what we got. And so she was a bit concerned that it wasn't good enough and left it. And so there was we'll talk about more with Ryan, but there was an actor who was attached to be Ryan who also left with Annette Bening did. The last thing is we talked about how important it is that they made her a therapist, which much more interesting and of its time than just having her as a stay-at-home mom. But you pointed out like one of the really important parts about why.
Yeah, like one of the things about the film is the fact that at least when I'm watching it, I'm thinking, oh, they're trying all the stuff that I would try if it happened to me. So like they try running into each other. Obviously, it's funny to watch. But then they talk about the fact that they should go to, the police or like someone to try and like alert or the hospital. And Jamie Lee Curtis then points out like, oh, that's going to get us a prescription of whatever and a quick trip to the psych ward or something like that, which she basically just implies like they're going to be like, you're obviously crazy and that's not going to help them, they're just going to get locked up. But like that's like a quick way of them addressing why that's not the route that they take, and the fact that
good writing.
And the fact that they then decide to just try and do a day in each other's bodies, which even halfway through that they obviously go back to the restaurant and they're like, what the fuck, basically. Again, something else you would try.
Yeah, but the other thing is it's good comedically because it leads the scenes with the
Evan.
Well, I was just gonna say the patients in general, but Evan. Let's talk about more of the secondary characters. So Evan was one so we've just been watching Sex and the City. Yeah. So Stamford is very close to our heart at the moment. He's a little bit funny, but then he just disappears, and I think this is. If we're talking nitpicking little weaknesses, there's a couple of characters that don't have a full, and I mean it's hard because there are actually a lot of characters in this movie for an hour and a half, and most of them have a full arc. But yeah, Evan Stamford doesn't. He's just there for a bit of comic relief. Stacy doesn't either.
No,
she just stays as the bully, and that's it. So the teacher we said is really good because he's an asshole. She confronts him, and then that's it. He's sort of dealt with, so that's good. I think. Probably one of our favorite side characters is Ryan. So I've actually put that I think he's kind of the linchpin of what makes this, better than just a fine movie, a good movie, because of the whole fact that obviously the wedding is around him, and if he wasn't a saint, it wouldn't work because we wouldn't care as much about Jamie Lee Curtis still getting married. But he's also not perfect in terms of we can understand why Lindsay Lohan doesn't love him. She even says at one point, I think there's an exchange where I think Jamie Lee Curtis asks him what's wrong with Ryan, and she says he's fine, and then Jamie Lee Curtis understands he's just not your father, which is the key thing about Ryan, is that he's a perfectly good guy, he's a great guy, but he's not the father. But we also said it's important that he's not a walkover, that he does push back when she sees him on the back of the motorbike and stuff. He just
there is a moment, maybe it's at the Chinese restaurant actually, when they're ordering or something like that, and Ryan like says something to try and get on the side of Anna, and then the grandpa leans over and is like, don't try so hard, let her come to you. But I think literally besides that, throughout the movie he does tread the balance quite well of being like supportive, not really in the way, but also like putting his foot down when he saw Jamie Lee Curtis on the back of Jake's motorbike and things like that. So,
but I think him trying there, and he says it later on. He's like, it's really hard. Like I don't want to try and force myself into your family, but also I still want you to know that I care. Yeah. And I think he had pre-ordered her duck or something, her favorite dish, and which I think is a sweet thing to do. But she's obviously just a pissed off teenager at that point, so she doesn't take it well. But yeah, then the granddad saying, let her come to you is interesting, and obviously that works in the end.
Yeah.
And also, the balance between the fact that Jamie Lee Curtis loves him, but not in a disrespectful way for the husband/dad. And so the person that was initially cast for this alongside Annette Bening was Tom Selleck.
Oh? Magnum.
Yeah, and Richard from Friends.
Yeah.
But yeah, he quit when she did. Then Jake, so much better than Boris/Morris.
Yeah.
He just fills the assignment. He looks perfect for the role. He plays it perfectly. He doesn't, the movie isn't about him. He's not. I think again, writing wise, I think it's just the right amount of screen time.
He does this sort of role quite well. So like, the hot guy, I guess that people like, or I guess he's sort of like the misunderstood kind of brooding character. He is a bit of that in One Tree Hill as well. And then Cinderella Story is a big one, which, yeah.
But I think even in Cinderella Story, the story isn't ultimately about their romance. It's about the Hilary Duff character gaining her confidence and like asserting herself. And I think, again, similar here, he's sort of I mean, I can't think of an example of him doing that. I'm sure there are. I don't think he's meant to be like in a rom-com where it's like 50-50.
No, I don't think his acting is strong enough for that, but I think,
he's a good supporting
exactly.
supporting man as opposed to leading man.
Yeah.
Supporting love interest as opposed to leading love interest.
Yeah.
So obviously there's the group of friends, but the only one that's, I guess, worth mentioning is Christina
Vidal, I think.
Christina Vidal, who I know from the movie Brink, which you hadn't heard of, which is another Disney skating movie, but you know her from
Taina. She was Taina on Nickelodeon for 2 seasons.
I googled it because of this. I'd never even heard of it, and
it's so good.
And she had 2 seasons. Apparently, it was very successful, and then it got cancelled pretty much for like business, political reasons.
I can't remember exactly. I feel like it was around that whole like I'd watched Sabrina, I'd watched Taina. They all rhyme, but I think she was like she had some sort of musical link in that as well, and was like trying to make it big, or had that as her dream, and so there was a bit of a theme in there about like.
So I'll tell you a bit more about her music, and then we talk about the music. But yeah, there is she did have a music contract, which she claims is one of the reasons why they cancelled the show, is they thought she had taken her eye off the ball.
Oh.
But also they cancelled her show and replaced it with a show starring Little Romeo instead.
Oh. That's a shame.
Yeah. And then the last one is the brother. He's very cute, and he's more of a shit than in the books.
Yeah.
But he is still cute, and it still works.
It does.
Moving on to the script. So, much better than the original movie. Yeah. Probably because Mary Rodgers didn't write it. Sorry, Mary Rodgers. She's passed away, but she's just catching a lot of strays in this podcast.
Yeah.
So the people who wrote the script were Heather Hatch and Leslie Dixon. Heather Hatch seems like the only notable thing she did was she wrote the non-musical parts of the Legally Blonde musical. So like the talking bits.
Okay.
And What to Expect When You're Expecting the movie.
Oh, which I still haven't seen.
No, yeah, we're going to watch that. Then Leslie Dixon, who was older. Heather Hatch was in her 20s when she wrote it. Leslie Dixon has wrote Mrs. Doubtfire, the 1999 Thomas Crown Affair, Pay It Forward, and Limitless, which is one of my favorites. And she was an executive producer on Gone Girl, so very up our street. So this was the interesting thing about the script, is that it says here, the early draft of the screenplay depicted a psychiatrist mother and a daughter who wrote for her school newspaper and aspired to interview Gwen Stefani at the House of Blues. But the director, Mark Waters, revised the character into a straight-laced mother and a rebellious alt-rock daughter, believing their contrast would be more compelling. So what I'm thinking is maybe Annette Bening saw the original version and was like, I don't think this is going to quite work. Yeah. But it does sound like this happens often, that the director did. I mean, that sounds like a significant rewrite.
Yeah.
Changing that character like that. So, yeah, that is interesting on the script front. We've both listed our favorite quotes, and what I have here is that I think before we were talking about this, and you said it's not really something that comes to mind as a quotable movie, and it's definitely not Mean Girls level quotable. You're not gonna pull out lines like she doesn't even go here and stuff like that. Yeah. But once we started doing it, there's actually I have quite a few.
Do you? I feel like I already talked about some of mine already. But you go first, and then I'll just share about.
So mine are in chronological order.
Okay.
So this one I know we both like is when she's talking to Evan in therapy, and he says, "This morning was good."
And then I got up. Yeah.
Which is, it's so a funny real line, but it also just, you don't need to know anything more about him, because I don't think we even know. We know he's very scared that he's got abandonment issues.
Yeah.
But you don't really need to know any more about what a drama queen he is than that line. It just tells you just like everything goes wrong for him.
Yeah.
Then obviously we talked about the whole when she's on the phone to her client and like, you're a strong, beautiful woman. We don't need to repeat that one. But even right before that, she says, "No, you may not touch the power tools." Yes, I would consider the lawnmower a power tool.
Yeah.
I think, again, just tells you everything about the sort of people that she's dealing with. And then there's, again, we alluded to these, you couldn't last one day in my high school. And then a couple of minutes later, the mum says, you need a serious reality check if you think my life is perfect. And that's kind of the establishing the theme line, the two-way street. Not the daughter thinks the mum's life is easy. So she doesn't say, I want your life, but she's saying your life is easy. And then the mum is saying, high school isn't that hard. And then they both find out they were wrong.
Yeah.
Then the switch is, that's definitely not mine, when she touches her butt. And the I'm old. And then the other one that's really important is when I think when they're confronting each other. And I think at first the daughter doesn't believe that it's been a body switch. And then Lindsay Lohan as the mum says, don't use that tone with me, young lady. And Jamie Lee Curtis goes, oh God, you are my mother.
Yeah.
And then similarly when they're talking about what do we do, I'm merely a grown woman trapped in my daughter's body. Oh God, I am crazy. And then when they're sort of like, let's switch lives. You think you can be me? Of course I can. Watch me. Oh, everyone's out to get me. You're ruining my life. That's it. So this is the mother in Lindsay Lohan's body pretending to be Lindsay Lohan. Is like quite a funny triple layering of it. And then the Jamie Lee Curtis, then the daughter says, it's easy to be you. I'll just suck the fun out of everything.
Yeah.
And then the next one I have is what is it about Ryan that you don't like? He's fine, but he's not your father. And then you mention it to it. They'll give you one thing. He definitely likes you for your mind. And then, just the youth is wasted on the young. And yeah, that's what I've got. Any others from you?
No, that's it. You've covered them.
Lovely. So we'll move on to production, which is brought by our sponsor, Concave Brand Tracking. If you have any interest in finding out how much your product placement is worth in movies, then get in touch with Concave Brand Tracking. You also visit our website, see our dedicated YouTube channel, and just contact us for more information. So Danny scanned this for us. He recorded every single brand and found 77 different brands in this. It was worth $17 million just from its theatrical run. But with all the hundreds of millions of people that have watched it to date, those 77 brands have now gotten over $216 million in value in that time. Can you guess what the number one brand is? And it's by far, or just generally, at the top 5.
The motorbike. The Harley.
It's not even in the top 5.
Oh. The McDonald's French fries.
Okay, I'll put you out of your misery. So it's Fender, the instrument. So do the guitars are Fender, the amplifiers are Fender. And this, I hadn't even noticed it, but Danny, very good at his job, noticed her outfit when she's in school, before the switch.
Yeah.
She's got the choker.
Yeah.
It's got a pick. The thing in the middle is a guitar pick.
It's weird because I looked at it and I was like, it could be.
I thought it was a heart.
I thought it was a heart as well.
No, it says Fender on it.
Oh, that makes a lot more sense now. Why she would wear that?
Yes, it does. But then, so it's that. It's also the fact that her guitar is a Fender. And a lot of the instruments that they use. So Fender is by far. So Fender today has gotten $77 million in product placement value from Freaky Friday. The other top 5 brands are the Volvo, so Jamie Lee Curtis's car, Lincoln, which is Ryan's car, Sony, it's the alarm clock, camcorder, TV, and then Yamaha, which is another one that there's a bunch of instruments. So and then House of Blues got 4 mentions. House of Blues is a real venue in the US that's got venues all over the country, so we consider that like a proper brand. And then there's loads of bands that are mentioned, and there are posters. So Kill Your Idols, Green Day, The Vines, FON, Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, The Strokes, The Suicide Machines, Agnostic Front, Weezer, Emily the Strange. I don't know most of these, but
The Hives.
Yeah, the Hives they talk about. But so that's your product placement analysis for Freaky Friday.
Thank you.
Other things on production. So the director I mentioned, Mark Waters, he made the next year Mean Girls with Lindsay Lohan. So
do you know, because his name was really familiar to me and I was like, surely I don't know it from Freaky Friday. Maybe it is because I've seen it come up in the Mean Girls credits.
He's also made Ghost of Girlfriend's Past, which is fine but not amazing. Bad Santa 2, Magic Camp. So I think definitely these are his Mean Girls and Freaky Friday are definitely the height of his career. But he ironically, he hasn't worked with Lindsay Lohan for Netflix, but he's now become a bit of a Netflix director. He made He's All That, Mother of the Bride, and La Dolce Villa. So he's cashing those Netflix checks. The producer was Andrew Gunn, who again hasn't done anything amazing. Haunted Mansion, Race to Witch Mountain, Bad Santa 2. He made Cruella 2021 with Emma Stone, so that's a good movie. And the reason I'm bringing him up is because he is the main producer on Freaky Friday 2, Freakier Friday. So we'll see if he can come back to his past glory. We haven't talked about the fashion. So apparently, I think I said in the original script, no. Obviously, in the original script, they said she was like a nerd newspaper writer. But then I guess in the rewrite, I think in the rewrite, she was meant to be a goth. But then the story goes that when Lindsay Lohan came and auditioned, she made her more preppy and said we'll make her more relatable. So I asked Google AI what her fashion style is, and they said Y2K era mall punk skater style.
Yeah.
In the to reflect the Avril Lavigne inspired aesthetic at the time, which I think she's a bit more preppy than Avril was, but yeah, very much in the same vein. What do you think of the fashion?
I think you described it pretty well there, because I don't really have many more comments. I think it's quite troubling at times, like the Christina character when she has her hair in 3 different ponytails, which actually is very Gwen Stefani. So maybe that is like, keeping hold of one of the things that they were originally angling for.
So that character, like when she was in that bring, like I had a bit of a kid crush on her, and obviously she is beautiful. But yeah, when she does her hair that way, I was like, oof,
yeah,
some real choices were made there. And then we were talking about the Jamie Lee Curtis makeover. You quite liked it.
Yeah, I feel pretty good for her. She gets her hair cut. Her hair is like so shapeless and not very nice before, and then she gets it all cut all cool and stuff, gets her extra piercings, and then puts on a nice dress. It's not a dress I would wear, but I think that's it.
That from a guy's point of view, you think a makeover that she's going to be hotter for it, but she's not hotter, but she's cooler.
Yeah,
we can give her that.
Got rid of her nasty pantsuit thing.
Yeah, and then on the flip side of that, Lindsay Lohan's outfit that she wears when she's the mum for the rehearsal dinner, it's just so gross. With that big pink or purple whatever it is that goes with the dress. It's just horrendous.
Yeah.
And then now let's talk about the music. So we talked about the beginning. This is something I hadn't thought about. So the beginning goes from the original Happy Together to the cover. Apparently most of the songs in this are covers because of the fact, and they say the reason they use is it was a deliberate choice, is the fact that because this is a remake of a classic movie, it makes sense that all the songs would be remakes of classic songs. Right. Which it is, a lot of them are. So we talked about the intro. Obviously, Baby One More Time is a big part in the story about them getting on. The first song at the wedding is quite cool. The brand new day. Yeah, it's cheesy, but it's a bit pop rocky, but it's very cute. And then the ultimate song by Lindsay Lohan at the end is just great for that genre. I was saying none of these songs, like I think something like 10 Things I Hate About You or American Pie back then, there are songs that I will hear now. I'm like, that's from 10 Things I Hate About You. That's from American Pie. That's from, I don't think there's movies that you would, like, I'm not going to, well now maybe I'll associate that Simple Plan song with this, but I don't think the soundtrack is iconic enough that the songs become intrinsically linked to the movie, but I think it's a solid soundtrack.
I think the songs of Pink Slip, like the song that the actual band have and then her performing Ultimate at the end, I feel like those are really always stuck in my mind. Before I rewatched recently, I probably couldn't have told you a bunch of the other songs that are in it, but those ones I always remember.
Yeah, so that makes sense. Ultimate was written for the movie, so that makes sense. And so here's a story about the song the band does. So it's called Take Me Away, and it was originally a song made by an Australian band called Lash, which didn't do anything really on the charts. So they basically took it and repurposed it, and then Christina Vidal did release it as a single for the soundtrack as well. So that gave it a new life. So it was a pre-existing song, right? But that was repurposed for this. It's not like a classic song or anything like that. And so when I was doing my deep dive on Christina Vidal and her music career, so she was supposed to have, so she signed that contract, a recorded contract with MCA, but she never actually got an album released. Like, she recorded a bunch of stuff. She did soundtracks for this plus 3 other movies, so she obviously is a good singer. Craziest thing I found is apparently when they were forming the Pussycat Dolls, they offered her the position of lead singer. So before Nicole Scherzinger, it was offered to her.
That's so weird to think about. She's so different.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, good-looking girl, but they obviously wanted to mold her into what Nicole Scherzinger became. And she just said no because she wasn't interested. And,
Yeah.
it was just a money grab of let's just get a bunch of hot women together with one that can sing.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it was very successful for its time, but I can definitely see that someone who, was successful in her own right was not interested. She's got one of those careers that you think, oh, did she just sort of disappear? But she's worked solidly.
Yeah.
She's been in a bunch of stuff, nothing that I've seen recently, but yeah, she's had a bunch of supporting stuff. She's been in loads of TV shows. She had a couple of shows where she was the supporting character or whatever. So yeah, she's just a working actress now.
Fair enough. And not like so crazy famous that she can't just live a normal life, I'm sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah. I'm not trying to think if I would recognize her if I saw her in the street.
I never see her getting papped, as they say.
And I mean, she's still obviously young, so she's the sort of person that could be in like something big again. But sometimes it must be weird when you start off and you have literally your own sitcom as a teenager, and maybe you think you're gonna become what Lindsay Lohan became, but then you look at what happened to Lindsay Lohan, and you're thinking that didn't work out well for her.
And also, I mean, maybe it put her off for a while because she was part of the Nickelodeon, era, I guess. And she wasn't like super young at that time, but she was, I guess, a young teenager. So my guess is she probably didn't have the best experience there either.
Yeah, it seemed like that was pretty traumatic. So, in recap, now that we've gone through everything in detail, how would you bring together the main elements that make this such an iconic movie for you?
I think I would say it's a very interesting concept to start off with, and then I think just the actors really bring it together. The music for me is a big part of it, like when it came out as well, kind of how influential I guess it kind of was. And I just love the fact that it is like it's fun and funny, but also has that heart kind of like emotional element to it. And as I said earlier, nearly always find myself in a mood to watch it. Most recently, obviously, you and I did a rewatch, but before that, I think I had watched it a few months back with a few friends when we were having like a weekend away, and I think we were just having like a cozy evening. And it's like we're all just, early to mid 30s, but like just, I think it's a great film and I don't see myself like becoming less interested in it as I age. As I said,
it's aged well.
Yeah.
Apart from the Chinese thing we talked
from
about, and obviously the tech is a bit old, but that it doesn't feel super old, which is nice. But yeah, I agree. I think it's a funny movie, but for me, what really puts it above most comedies is the heart, and that's not an easy thing. It's good writing, good acting, and a good idea. Because it could have been handled badly. The whole dead dad, stepfather whole thing, like it could have been, but it's done tastefully. So I think that for me now, having worked on it for this podcast, that's kind of what makes it special for me. So it's special for me, but it still isn't gonna make it into my top 100. I'm not asking for an exact rank. Where would you roughly put it in your is it in your top 100, and if so, where would you roughly put it?
I think it's in my top 20. It's probably it's definitely not the top 10. I think it would be maybe like 16 or 17, something like that. I haven't done an official ranking list, and
it's fine. Only weirdos like me do that.
And Danny. But I would guess it's probably around that sort of mark. So
that's fair. So we've done Bridesmaids. So Bridesmaids is definitely a step higher. Bridesmaids and Superbad are definitely higher, but it's probably next tier.
Yeah.
So finally, Freakier Friday is coming out this weekend. We're both going to go see it, and we're going to do an instant reaction on Instagram. So make sure to follow us there to find out what we think as soon as we've come out of the cinema. But we've both watched the trailer together. What do you think of it?
I'm excited that it's coming. I can see that they're going to switch places with more than just two people this time. I'm not sure I don't think it's going to live up to the first one, but it looks funny. It looks like an interesting concept. And I love that they have two of the originals. Actually, three, because Chad Michael Murray makes an appearance as well, doesn't he? So I'm excited for it.
Yeah. I don't like watching trailers too much because I don't want to find out too much from the trailer, but I did it here for the podcast. And so it seems like the premise is that there's Lindsay Lohan is getting married to someone, and I think she has a daughter and the husband has a daughter. So these are two people around the same age as she was in the first one, and then so they're going to become stepsisters and they don't get on.
Yeah.
And then the four of them, Freaky Friday.
Yeah.
So I
but
think
then Jamie Lee Curtis by this point is like
the grandma.
Yeah.
But I think basically the two future stepsisters get put in Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay. So basically it's new characters but put in Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan's body. And yeah, the Chad Michael Murray thing looks quite smart. I think if it's executed like this one, it could actually be really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just need to follow the same formula that we've talked about today. There needs to be good heart. The story needs to be good.
Mm-hmm.
They need to make it funny while still being well paced and stuff. So I have high hopes.
Yeah.
And we need comedies to do well in the theaters. So
this is true.
Fingers crossed. Well, Sonita, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on this amazing movie. We hope to see you again. I believe the next movie we're going to be doing together is going to be Gone Girl, which we both love. So looking forward to that.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Looking forward to being back again soon.
See you soon.